In this video, I will show how to trellis tomatoes using an overhead wire. Tomatoes, when growing for higher yield, need to be suckered, or the leaves and branches that grow in between the main stem and the leaf need to be clipped about weekly. This will help the plant focus its energy on producing fruit rather than vegetation. As a result of suckering, the plant may become tall and thin, its main stem not rigid enough to hold the heavy fruit it bears. Without trellising, the fruit would bend the stalk down, and the tomato would crawl across the ground, and the fruit would become more susceptible to rot, pests, or disease. Trellising in a vertical fashion for tomatoes helps to improve the amount of light it can access, prevent disease, and encourage growth. Here's how to set up your own trellis tomato system. Get one post for every 20 to 25 feet. In this bed, we have 3 6x6 inch by 8 foot posts, dug into the ground about 1 or 2 feet deep. Then, dig your anchor for a wire to be run over the posts. This can be a small beam or stick, dug in a 45-degree angle facing away from the end posts. You'll wrap your wire around this, using it for creating tension and holding the wire back. Then, get a thick 1/2 inch gauge galvanized wire and run it over your beams. At the ends, run the wire around your anchor and then loop back to the main wire. Use steel clamps to tighten the wire in place. The wire and wood can be readily found at a local Home Depot or a local hardware store. This should be done before you plant your tomatoes in the beginning of the season. However, if you get a late start, it can certainly be done with tomatoes in the ground, just with added caution for the plants. Once you've assembled your core structure, you can start hanging string vertically down from the wire to the plants. We usually do this once the plants have started to get about 2 feet tall, because at this point, they will start needing some support, and there is enough room for the stalk to successfully complete a few starting wraps on the tomatoes. Not all tomatoes grow at the same rates, so we often have to go back and hang more strings from the wire to the tomato every week. It is important not to hang string for a tomato that is too small. Sometimes, if you tie it tight around the plant, it will work. But most often, a string around a small plant, even if tied tight, will eventually be blown off. And then we find that those loose strings can create a tangled mess. So, avoid a tangled mess, and try your best to hang strings and begin trellising when each tomato is matured enough. As the main string for the trellising, we use hay bale twine, but you can also use any kind of hardy twine you choose. I suggest using twine over plastic because twine can eventually be composted with plants at the end of the season. While hanging your twine, remember to tie a special kind of knot at the top. I call it a trucker's hitch knot. It's simple, but not easy to learn, so I'll go slow and do it a couple of times. First, you take the string and make it a circle. While making a circle, one side of the string has to go over the other. In this case, the right side of my string is over the left in order to create the circle. Using whatever side that is on top, take that side of string and make another loop. So in this, I will make a loop with a piece of string in my right hand, holding on to the original circle in my left. Now, you should have one circle being held in your left hand and one loop in your right. Take your right hand and bring it under your left, underneath the circle. Then bring the loop up through the circle. Use the string on the left to pull tight the knot. The original circle should close around the loop you made in your right hand, and when you pull on the loose end of the loop, the whole knot should come apart. But when you pull on the loose end originally in your left hand, the knot should tighten. This kind of knot is very useful. It allows us to make adjustments in mid-season if the string gets too tight or too loose, and it makes pulling plants at the end of the season much easier and more efficient. Once you've made your knot at the top, take the remaining string and wrap it around the tomato. Every week, you should come back to your tomatoes and check in on them, prune any suckers, and add another wrap or two to account for its growth. In addition, you should develop a steady fertilization regimen and amend with organic matter, and irrigate well. Tomatoes love healthy and nutritious soil and do best in regularly watered conditions. We fertilize with a mixture of kelp and fish emulsion and use drip irrigation. As the tomato grows up, there will often be browning or spotted leaves. This could be due to a variety of causes, but most often due to a kind of blight. In order to prevent the blight from overtaking your plant, prune off the browning leaves all the way to the main stem. This blight happens in my most simple ways of thinking about it, because the energy in the lower leaves is being taken up by the energy in the higher leaves. Prune these leaves out as to prevent or slow the eventual blighting of your leaves and your tomatoes. Later in the season, watch out for tomato hornworms. Worms the size of your finger that can strip a single plant and all its leaves in an evening. These worms easily blend in the stem of the tomato, but you can usually spot evidence of these worms by their small pellets of poop scattered on the lower leaves or on the ground, and usually find them munching on a leaf higher up on the tomato plant. The best way to manage these tomato hornworms is by simply picking them and crushing them, or giving them to chickens if you have any. This method of trellising tomatoes provides an effective way to manage these plants, preventing disease, increasing yield, and it can be adapted to several different environments: a small farm, a garden, or a greenhouse.